My wife and cheated with our estate lawyer behind my back, claiming she was protecting our $500, $0 inheritance. Now she's filing for half the house and my life savings. And I just found out she forged my signature on the property deed. I never thought I'd be sitting here telling a story like this, but here we are. It all started with a gut feeling that just wouldn't go away. I mean, I've been with Lisa for 10 years, married for 8, and I thought I knew everything about her, or at least I thought I did. But then, out of nowhere, everything changed. It was like a switch flipped, and suddenly I was faced with the kind of betrayal you only see in movies. It began about 2 months ago. I started noticing little things, her phone constantly locked, her being unusually secretive, and her brushing off my questions like I was some kind of paranoid psycho. At first, I thought maybe she was just stressed at work or had some personal stuff going on. But then, I found her hiding her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, which wasn't like her. She'd always been open, chatty even about her day. Now she was sneaky, defensive, and lying about where she was going. One night I decided to follow her. It wasn't planned. I just had this feeling that she was hiding something and I needed to know. She said she was going out with her friends, but I saw her slip out of the house late at night, around 11:30. I followed her to a fancy hotel downtown. My stomach clenched when I saw her go inside with a guy I didn't recognize. They stayed for hours. I parked across the street, watching through the window, feeling my world tilt. The next morning, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I confronted her. She tried to deny everything at first, acting like I was crazy. "You're just imagining things," she snapped. But I pulled out the photos I took and the receipts I found in her purse. Her face went pale. She looked me dead in the eyes and lied, said it was just a business meeting and that I was overreacting. She called me paranoid and said I was accusing her of something she didn't do, but I knew better. That day, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. It was like my entire life had been a lie. I couldn't believe she'd cheat on me behind my back, especially with our estate lawyer, Mark. Mark had been handling our inheritance 500-0 we were supposed to split. But what I found out later was even worse. Lisa was claiming she was protecting our money, and somehow she was trying to get half the house and my life savings. I found forged signatures on the property deed. She'd actually signed my name. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How could she do this? How could she lie so easily? I was furious but also crushed. I felt betrayed not just by her cheating but by the fact that she'd gone so far as to forge my signature. It was like she was trying to steal my entire life. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all this? Was I blind? Or just too trusting? I had no idea what to do next, but I knew I had to act fast. The trust was gone and the damage was done. But what hurt the most was knowing she'd lied to my face for months, all while she was sneaking around with Mark, pretending to protect our future when she was planning to take everything I had. I started digging into her phone, her emails, everything I could find. That's when I discovered the full extent of her lies. There were secret texts between her and Mark, plans to meet up, talks about splitting the inheritance, and even more disturbing, she'd forged my signature on the property deed. I found the documents in her files, hidden in a drawer she thought I'd never look in. The proof was right there, her handwriting, her signature, all fake. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I had no idea how to process it all. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was now a stranger, and she'd been lying to me for months, probably longer. That's when everything changed. I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. I had to figure out what to do next, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without a fight. Not without making her pay for what she did. I started planning my next move, knowing I had to be smart, precise, and cold if I wanted to come out of this with some sense of justice. The betrayal cut deep, but I wasn't going down without a fight. After discovering all the lies, the forged signatures, and the affair, I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But the worst part was knowing that Lisa, my wife, had been manipulating everything behind my back, playing the victim, acting innocent while scheming to take half of everything I owned. I thought about confronting her again, but I knew she'd spin it, lie her way out of it, and probably deny everything. So I decided I had to be smarter. First thing I did was gather every piece of evidence I could find. I went through her phone, her emails, her bank statements, everything. I needed proof, hard proof, to make sure I wouldn't be the one looking like the crazy one if I ever took this to court or the authorities. I found the texts between her and Mark. Those weren't just innocent discussions about legal stuff. They were full of scheming, plans to split the inheritance, and her asking him how to forge my signature. That was the moment I realized she'd been planning this for a while. I also called in a lawyer I knew, someone I trusted, to help me navigate through the mess. The lawyer told me to get a certified copy of the deed, which I did, and then I compared it with the signature on the forged document. The handwriting was a dead giveaway. I also learned that she'd been trying to file for half the house in my savings. She had the paperwork ready, all signed and notarized, thanks to Mark's involvement. The betrayal was staggering. It was like she'd been planning this entire time, and I was just an idiot for not seeing it sooner. The next step was confronting Lisa again, but this time I wasn't going to hold back. I told her I knew everything about her affair, her lies, the forgery. Her reaction was cold, almost amused. She tried to deny it at first, saying I was overreacting, that she was only protecting us. She claimed Mark was just helping her because he cared about us, that it was all for our benefit. But I wasn't buying any of it. I told her I had enough evidence to bury her in court if I wanted, and that I was done playing her game. Her face twisted into a bitchy sneer. "You're overreacting, Jason. You always do. I'm just trying to keep our family safe. You're so paranoid, it's pathetic." That's when I saw the full extent of her manipulation. She's always been good at lying, twisting things around, making me doubt myself. But this time, I had proof. I told her I was filing for divorce and I was going to take back everything she tried to steal, my house, my savings, everything. She laughed, a cold, dismissive laugh that made my blood boil. "Good luck with that," she spat. "You're not going to get anything. I've already got everything covered. Mark and I have it all figured out." That's when she mentioned she was already talking to lawyers, planning to split everything 50-50, and that she was going to make sure I got nothing. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively trying to steal my life. I felt a mixture of rage and heartbreak. How could she do this? How could she turn our marriage into some kind of scam? I had trusted her, loved her, built a life with her. And now I was looking at my wife trying to take it all away, lying to my face the whole time. It was a punch to the gut. But I also knew I had to stay calm and be strategic, because if I lost control, I'd lose everything. I decided I needed to get legal help fast. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer and we started working on a plan. I wanted to freeze the assets, get an injunction, and prove the forgery in court. I also told him I wanted to press charges if necessary. I couldn't let her get away with this, not after everything. The stakes were too high now. I had to fight for what was mine, for the life I thought I had. I couldn't let her walk away with half my house, my savings, and my future. Not without a fight. The more I dug into her schemes, the angrier I got. Lisa was always the kind to spin stories, make herself look innocent, but now she was revealing her true colors. She was manipulative, cunning, and willing to do whatever it took to get what she wanted. My money, my house, my life. I couldn't believe I'd been blind for so long. All those years, I thought we had something real. Turns out, she just saw me as a bank account she could drain whenever she felt like it. The day I finally decided to go all in was the day I gathered all the evidence I'd collected and handed it over to my lawyer. We filed for an emergency injunction to freeze her access to the bank accounts and the property deed. I also had the signatures on the forged deed analyzed by a handwriting expert. It was clear she'd forged my signature. She thought she could just forge her way into my life and take everything. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I wanted justice, and I wanted her out of my life for good. While all this was happening, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of betrayal. I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the walls, trying to process what was happening. I thought about our wedding day, how happy we were, and how I never saw this coming. Lisa had always been bitchy, demanding, and manipulative, but I thought she loved me. I guess I was just too blind to see that she was only with me for what she could get. Now, I was left with the wreckage of a marriage built on lies. Lisa's reaction to the legal action was classic. She called me a manipulative bastard, saying I was ruining her life. She accused me of being paranoid, of inventing all these stories. She even had the nerve to cry, claiming I was trying to ruin her for no reason. But I knew better. I had the evidence, I had the law on my side, and I wasn't backing down. I told her straight that I was going to fight for my rights, for my house, and for my savings. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything I'd worked for. The turning point came when I found out she'd been secretly talking to Mark, our estate lawyer, behind my back. I discovered emails where they schemed about how to split the inheritance, how to get around the legal safeguards I'd put in place. I read messages where she was asking him how to forge my signature without raising suspicion. I felt sick reading that. It was like she was actively trying to steal my entire future. I realized I couldn't trust her anymore, not even a little bit. All the love and trust I'd poured into this marriage was gone, replaced by betrayal and greed. I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't just sit around waiting for her to take everything. I contacted a private investigator to look into her activities, to see if she was hiding anything else. I wanted to know if she'd been planning this for months or even years. The pie came back with some shocking info. She'd been meeting with Mark regularly, even going to secret meetings at that fancy hotel downtown. They'd been discussing how to transfer the property deed, how to hide assets, and how to make it all look legit. It was clear she'd been planning this from the start. All this evidence made me realize how deep her lies went. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively working to steal my life. I started feeling numb, like I was just watching everything collapse around me. The woman I married, the woman I trusted, was now the woman trying to destroy everything I had. I felt anger, sadness, and a strange sense of helplessness. How do you fight someone who's been lying to your face for years? How do you rebuild what's broken when the person you love the most is the one tearing it apart? Despite everything, I was determined not to let her win. I started preparing for a legal battle that I knew would be long and messy. I wanted to protect what was mine, and I was ready to fight dirty if I had to. I reached out to a forensic accountant to trace every dollar she'd tried to funnel out of our accounts. I wanted to make sure she didn't get away with hiding anything else. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that Lisa was a master manipulator. She'd lied, cheated, forged, and schemed just to get her hands on my money and property. Now, I was in a war I hadn't signed up for, but I wasn't backing down. I'd spent 10 years building a life with her, and I wasn't going to let her destroy it all over greed and betrayal. I knew I'd have to be smart, patient, and relentless, because if I didn't fight for what was rightfully mine, no one else would. I had already lost so much faith in her, but I still had faith in myself, and I was going to see this through, no matter what it took. The legal battle was just beginning, and I quickly learned how complicated and dirty things could get. Lisa was throwing everything she had at me: fake tears, accusations, even claiming I was abusive just to turn the courts against me. She was good at spinning stories, but I had the evidence, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this one. I hired a good lawyer, one who specialized in asset disputes and fraud, and we started building a case to prove her illegal activities. Meanwhile, I kept digging. I hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her, and what I found was even more disturbing. She'd been meeting with Mark, our estate lawyer, at least twice a week. They'd been exchanging secret emails, discussing how to split the inheritance, hide assets, and forge signatures. The pie caught her going into Mark's office once, acting nervous and evasive. I was furious. This wasn't just a marriage gone bad, it was outright theft, and I was the target. I also discovered that she had been draining our joint accounts. Every time I turned around, there was less money. She transferred large sums to offshore accounts, trying to hide her tracks. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. I started reviewing all our bank statements, credit card bills, everything. It was like a trail of betrayal, and she'd left it all for me to find. I felt sick reading her lies on paper. One day, I caught her red-handed trying to forge my signature again. I was going through our files and found a new set of documents, another fake deed, another attempt to claim half the house. I snapped photos, called my lawyer immediately, and told her she was done. We filed a motion to have her served legal papers for fraud, forgery, and attempted theft. It was a blow she didn't see coming. She looked panicked for the first time, but I knew she'd been planning her moves for months. The confrontation with Lisa got uglier. She accused me of ruining her life, called me controlling and paranoid. She said she only wanted what was rightfully hers, that I'd been neglecting her, that she'd only been trying to protect us from losing everything. I couldn't believe her lies. She was acting like a victim, but I knew the truth. She'd been lying to my face for years, sneaking around, and now she was trying to steal my future. I told her to stop playing the victim, that I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I also started to realize how deep her resentment ran. She'd always been bitchy, demanding, and manipulative, but her greed was something new. It was like she saw the marriage as a business deal, not a partnership. All those years I worked hard, built a life, and trusted her, and she was just waiting for her chance to take everything I had. The more I uncovered, the more I saw that her intentions were clear. She was trying to cut me out completely, to walk away with everything and leave me with nothing. Things escalated when I found out she'd been secretly talking to Mark about how to hide the forged documents. I got proof of their scheme, screenshots of their messages, copies of the emails. It was clear they'd been working together, planning the perfect way to cheat me out of my inheritance. I felt a mixture of rage and despair. How could someone I loved do this? How could she turn into such a scheming manipulator? I started questioning everything I thought I knew about her. At this point, I knew I had to act fast. I filed a formal complaint with the courts to revoke any documents she'd forged and to prevent her from transferring any more assets. I also went to the police to report the forgery and fraud. I wanted her to face consequences, not just in court but legally. I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because I finally had proof, and dread because I knew this was only the beginning of a long, messy fight. Looking at everything now, I realize how naive I was. I always thought Lisa was just a little bitchy, a bit demanding, but I never suspected her of outright betrayal. Now I see her for what she really is, a manipulative, greedy woman who was willing to destroy everything for her own gain. I've learned that trust is fragile, that you can't just assume someone's intentions are pure. And most of all, I've learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty to protect what's yours. Because if you don't, someone else will take it all away without remorse. The legal process dragged on longer than I expected, but I stayed steady. Every day I was fighting to keep what was mine, my house, my savings, my future. Lisa's lawyers tried every trick in the book to delay, to dismiss, to undermine the evidence I had gathered. They claimed I was overreacting, that the forged signatures could be explained away, that Lisa was just trying to protect her family's interests. But I had the proof, clear, undeniable proof, that she forged my signature, that she'd been cheating on me, and that she was actively trying to steal my inheritance. Meanwhile, Lisa's behavior became more erratic. She started making wild accusations, claiming I was stalking her, that I was trying to ruin her reputation. She even tried to turn the court against me, claiming I was abusive and unstable. But I had witnesses, my friends, my family, who knew the truth. I also had the forensic reports and the emails proving her scheme. I stayed calm, focused on the facts, and refused to get dragged into her games. One shocking day, I finally got a court order to seize her assets. It was a huge win. All her offshore accounts, her bank accounts, even her credit cards were frozen. She was furious, screaming, crying, calling me every name in the book. But I didn't care. I knew I had to keep pushing forward. This wasn't about revenge alone, it was about justice. I wanted her to pay for what she did and to make sure she couldn't do it again. That's when I uncovered the full scope of her treachery. She'd been secretly funneling money into new accounts, trying to hide her assets. She'd also been trying to secretly sell parts of the house, something I only found out after I hired a private investigator. She'd been orchestrating her escape plan, thinking she could just walk away with everything. But I was one step ahead. I had the court's backing, and I was determined to stop her. The turning point came when I got a court order to appoint a forensic accountant. They went through all her financial transactions, traced every dollar she tried to hide. It was staggering. Hundreds of thousands of dollars moved offshore, fake invoices, shell companies. It was a clear attempt to cheat me out of my inheritance. I felt a strange mix of anger and relief. Anger because she'd betrayed me so badly, and relief because I finally had the proof to shut her down once and for all. Throughout this chaos, I never stopped questioning myself. Was I wrong to trust her? Did I miss the signs? But deep down, I knew I'd done everything I could. I'd fought for my rights, protected what I could, and now I was just waiting for the final court ruling. I also started to realize how much damage one person's greed and lies could do, how a marriage built on love could turn into a legal battlefield filled with deception and betrayal. In the end, I decided to pursue full custody of the house and the savings. I didn't want Lisa to get even a penny more than what was legally hers. I knew she'd try to fight me, but I was prepared. I had the evidence, the court orders, and the backing of my lawyer. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, my stability. I felt exhausted but determined. I knew I couldn't undo the damage, but I could at least make sure she didn't walk away with everything. Looking back, I see how naive I was to trust blindly. Love, I've learned, doesn't mean you ignore red flags. It doesn't mean you don't check the details. Because sometimes the person you love the most is the one who can hurt you the deepest. I've been betrayed, manipulated, and left to pick up the pieces. But I've also learned that you can fight back if you have the proof, the patience, and the will to see it through. Because at the end of the day, nobody is going to look out for your future better than you. And I won't let her take it all away without a fight. Now, as I sit here reflecting on everything that's happened, I realize I'm a different person than I was when I first discovered Lisa's betrayal. The pain, the anger, the frustration, they all shaped me in ways I never expected. I learned that trust can be a fragile thing, easily shattered by lies and greed. I also learned that sometimes the only way to protect what's yours is to fight with everything you've got, even if it means going through hell in the process. Getting through this legal nightmare has been exhausting, but it's also been a lesson. I've come out stronger, more cautious, and more aware of how easily people can hide their true selves behind a pretty face or a convincing lie. Lisa's true nature was revealed not just through her affair or her greed, but through her willingness to forge my signature and try to steal my future. That's something I'll never forget. What's most important now is that I'm rebuilding my life. I've moved out of the house, cut ties with Lisa completely, and started focusing on myself. I've found new hobbies, reconnected with friends I'd neglected, and begun to trust again, slowly but surely. I still feel the sting of betrayal every day, but I also feel a sense of relief. I know I fought for what was rightfully mine, and I won. Not just in court, but in reclaiming my peace of mind. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: never ignore the signs. If something feels off, dig deeper. Trust your instincts. And when you find evidence of betrayal or theft, don't hesitate to fight for justice. It's your life, your future, and nobody else is going to protect it better than you. Be smart, be patient, and don't let anyone, no matter how convincing or charming, take advantage of your trust. Most of all, I've learned that even the deepest wounds can eventually heal. It's a long road and the scars will stay with me, but I'm moving forward. I have no regrets about fighting for what's mine. Lisa's betrayal opened my eyes to a harsh reality. People can be manipulative, selfish, and ruthless. But I also found strength I didn't know I had. And in the end, that's what matters. I'm rebuilding my life piece by piece, and I'm finally ready to leave the darkness behind.